Good afternoon, everyone. It's 1 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started today. Thank you for joining our webinar program. My name is Erin Kopek, and I am the Marketing Coordinator at Extra Help. We are a workforce management resource for different businesses in the area. You have joined Extra Help's Workplace Excellence webinar entitled A Tool for Success today. Our presenter, Jeff Rose, will be introduced momentarily. The Workforce Excellence webinars are an exciting new program that Extra helps clients and colleagues that we give them to manage changes and increase workplace efficiency. A few things before we begin. The call will last about 1 hour with Q&A at the end. You are set up to a listen-only mode, but there will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. Questions can be posed throughout via the messaging function on the GoToWebinar at the bottom, but also at the end I will open up the mic for our panelists to address him directly. So let's get started. Today our presenter is Jeff Rose, founder and CEO of Alliance Wealth Management, LLC. Jeff is a certified financial planner, recently founding his own investment advisory firm, Alliance Management, LLC. He is the founder of Good Financial Sense, which is rated a top 20 finance blog according to Wisebread. He also is starting an upcoming book, Soldier of Finance, and this is one of his projects that combines his military background with his financial planning knowledge. And also Life Insurance by Jeff, which is a blog that he runs, which is dedicated in helping families find affordable life insurance solutions. He currently writes for U.S. News and Market Watch and has been featured in major sites such as the Huffington Post, Wall Street Journal, and the Fox Business. So we welcome Jeff, and now I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me okay? All right. Well, hey, Erin, thanks for having me on today. And thanks to all of you that are either participating or will participate at a later time. Realize that your time is valuable, and as business owners, you probably wear a lot of hats, as do I. So we want to make sure we respect your time and make sure that we give you something of value. Let's see. All right. So today's topic is, business planning, and most importantly, business succession planning. And I was actually just looking at some of the activities I've done this week, and I was having to deal with my umbrella and workers' comp insurance. I was having to deal with some continuing education, some payroll issues, some management issues, sending emails, client meetings, etc. So as a business owner, I'm sure you can relate to this, that there are a lot of tasks that you have to handle. And I'm just, I've got one employee, so it's not like I have a huge staff, but there's still a lot of daily activities I have to do to keep the business going. So if you are a small business that has multiple employees, you probably spend a lot of time in the business, but not a lot of time thinking about the business or what happens after the business if you're no longer there. So that's what we'll be addressing today. Before we get started, just a quick disclaimer. Let's put up there. I will not read that verbatim. I'll let you glance that over. All right, so basically the topic today, is the value of your business truly protected? As I mentioned before, we realize the hard work that all small business owners do. We do a lot of things, and just trying to stay on top of it is often challenging. And we have new issues to deal with, whether it be the economy, Social Security, Medicare, healthcare, all these things. We have been working with individuals and small business owners. I've been in the business for over 10 years now, and we've been able to help small business owners address some of these issues. Be able to take some of that off their plate to really deal with some of those issues that they face. So some of the things that we'll address today will be the needs of owners and executives, how some of our successful business owners have adapted to this changing landscape, and I think really to kind of bring it home is to illustrate a case study, of a business that we were able to help out that initially didn't think they needed help, but we were able to point out a few shortfalls, and then just some of the different services that we offer as well. So just some fun facts for you. You can read those over, but I don't think it's any surprise that we know, or at least acknowledge, that family-owned businesses represent a huge portion of the U.S.'s GDP. In a recent stat I saw, it said that family-owned businesses are responsible for $13 trillion, and that's T, a capital T, not a B, 13 trillion of our country's gross domestic product. And these aren't just the mom and pop shops, the hardware stores, the plumbers, the payroll firms. This is like the Marriotts and the Fords of the world. So, I mean, there are just so many different small businesses across the U.S. And, so some of these stats are just amazing. The one I do want to point out there in the middle that over the next 20 years, 4.8 trillion of net worth will be transferred. As you can see, that's going to grow exponentially over the next several years as well. So most of us that have family-owned businesses, maybe you have a child or someone in the family that you want to pass that business on to. An interesting stat shows that only 36% of family businesses survive to the second generation, and even smaller, less than half, 19%, go to the third generation. And despite knowing this, nearly, and this is a survey done of 1,600 companies, nearly half, 47%, didn't have a succession plan in place. And I know that in our findings, we actually see this to be higher. We've been able to see maybe in the 60% range. And that are the ones that have at least somewhat of a succession plan in place. What we see is a higher stat that they just don't have an adequate plan in place. Also, those surveyed, 61% don't think they have sufficient enough resources to divide it amongst their family members, another common concern that we deal with. And one of probably the most overlooked things regarding business succession planning is disability insurance. Making sure that either the key executive, the partners, have the appropriate type of disability insurance coverage if something happens, if that employee or that owner becomes disabled. What do you do? How do you succeed after that? And what we often see with most business owners is not the fact that they're avoiding to have any planning done. It's just they don't know where to get started. There's a lot of things to address. So like anything else, they just dive back into the business, go do what they do best and make money and grow revenue and increase profits. But, we got to have some planning for the long run. Some of the common needs that most owners and executives face, from the individual side of things, retirement funds, do you have enough? Most business owners, will have some type of retirement profit-sharing plan, so they're, funneling money into a 401k, SEP IRA, etc. But they don't spend enough time evaluating where their money is going. What are they actually invested into? And how is it doing? Most importantly, often we see the investments being scattered. Not really having a clear, sound strategy in accomplishing whatever those goals may be. Retiring the next 5, 10, 15 years. A common concern we see is health care. How are we going to pay for it? Obviously, Obamacare is a hot buzzword, and we can get into another discussion at a later day, as far as, how that's going to affect us. But, that's a real-life concern that many, not only business owners, but, as individuals face as well. But then you look at some of the specific business owner issues, and one of the things there, when can I exit my business? Do you have a strategy in place when you want to leave? Do you have the proper systems in place? Do you have the right successors to follow you? And how will those successors do after you're gone? Do you have children that you want to pass that over? How will they take it over? And here's one that we'll try to hammer home as this presentation goes on. What will your business sell for? What is the true value? Many business owners don't take the time to get a proper business evaluation done. So whenever they're trying to sell, they don't have an accurate value. They have an estimation, but it's not a current value. So as far as what the successful business owners have done, the ones that we've worked with and have been able to really address all the various issues, the 6 primary needs when it boils down to it is exit planning, wealth transfer, retirement income, business protection, survivor income, and then income protection as well. It's hammering each of those specific categories and making sure that you've addressed every single aspect. And I just want to bring up, this is, we partner, if you have a trusted CPA, if you have trusted attorneys, we work with them to make sure that we have the best plan in place. There are multiple solutions to meet your business needs, And we offer the total package to be able to address each need specifically. And as I mentioned before, most business owners they don't avoid it, but as you can see, if there are 6 areas that they need to address, that becomes overwhelming immediately. I know how I am whenever I want to start a new task. I like the easy things first, the low-hanging fruit. And when I start thinking about succession planning, even my own self as a business, I mean, that gets very overwhelming. But, we carve that off into small chunks, and we address the immediate needs. If you haven't had a business evaluation done in 5 years, let's address that first. Then that will help us in determine, if there's any income protection, survivor income, any of the buy-sell arrangements that could need to be enforced. So if you have an owner or buy-sell agreement in place, here are just some of the key questions that you need to ask. And often what we see is, as you saw before, half of people don't even have a buy-sell arrangement in place. And often the ones that do, they're very, very, very weak. They haven't addressed some of the common issues, like, for example, is a mandatory buyout required upon death or disability? Oftentimes, especially if we have partners in place, just a quick question to ask yourself is, do you want to be partners with your former partner's spouse, with her widow? And, answering that question real quick should determine, okay, I need to get a buy-sell agreement in place now, immediately. And a lot of things from the financial planner side, we focus a lot on the investment side, just making sure that there's no retirement income shortfall. Even so, as a business owner, and I see this with individuals as well, thinking that they have enough to retire off of, just assuming that they have several $1 million, is that going to be enough to fund their lifestyle, especially if they're planning an early exit strategy. And just having to analyze, their investments, how they're allocated, and what those investments are really doing for them. So now that we've kind of looked at some of the, best practices that successful business owners do, they take time to plan. They meet with their trusted attorney, with their trusted accountant. They work with their financial planner to make sure that they have, a buy-sell agreement in place. Make sure they have enough life insurance coverage to take care if a buy-sell agreement is needed. If there is a premature death of a partner or a key executive. I want to just introduce a case study of a company that had a buy-sell agreement in place. They did have some life insurance, and as I mentioned previously, they had thought that they were doing okay. So here's just kind of a background on the company. It was a construction company located in Chicago. They had 3 related entities under that one company. They hadn't had a recent evaluation done of the business. In this case, it actually had been over 5 years since they had done so, which maybe in some businesses that might be okay, but in their case, they had some acquisitions. They had some really good revenue growth over the years. So they definitely had grown to where the current value of the business was was no indication of whatever the value they had assessed 5 years prior. As mentioned, they did have some life insurance in place, some key man insurance, on the 2 partners. They did have some buy-sell arrangements also in place, but once again, they had not been reviewed for quite some time. Other than the 2 partners, they had a key executive that had been with them since the beginning, since the company had been founded, and this was their go-to guy. Without that person, their construction company wouldn't be nearly, what it was. So they wanted to find a way to keep the employee, to entice the employee to stick around by offering some type of golden handcuffs reward package, that would incentivize the key employee for sticking around and also having a stake in the company. Both partners were planning, an exit strategy over the next 5, potentially 10 years. That was kind of their goal. They really hadn't addressed, the retirement situation. They were both funding the 401k that had a profit-sharing component. They had outside investments, other than their retirement plans. But just like their buy-sell arrangement, just like their life insurance policies, they hadn't reviewed them, hadn't reviewed their retirement situation, actually in this case at all. They just were funneling money away. They chose some mutual funds, some stocks, some other real estate, but really didn't have a clear strategy in place. So in addition to the key executive, they also had, each partner had a son that was currently working with the company and also wanted to stay on with the company. So they wanted to figure out a way that they could pass on ownership, to their sons in a tax-efficient manner. They also had heirs. Oops, got a little click happy. Yeah, I'll have to go back. But they also had some heirs that they also felt had given a lot of effort into the business, so they wanted to make sure that the heirs were also taken care of, and they weren't sure if there was enough to take the business as well. Was each two owners own equal shares of the business. We had requested an informal valuation of the business. And the one thing that we've been able to do is we've been able to partner, and this is an informal valuation, but nonetheless an informal valuation will give you so much information, especially if you've never had an evaluation done. It will give you information about the business, what it's worth, how it compares with other businesses in your industry, potential growth values, expected growth values of the business. But we also work with a team that is able to do this informal evaluation for you. I'll talk a little bit about it now and also later on, but this is typically if you're going to go out and get a formal evaluation done, you're looking at a roughly $5,000 package. We basically have partnered with an entity that will, has CPAs and attorneys on staff that will give you an informal evaluation done for free. So we'll share more of that at the end. But we also advocated, the buy-sell review and also the life insurance review. As mentioned, they did have life insurance, but as we'll soon find out, they did not nearly have enough. We discovered that their buy-sell agreement was for book value with deductions. And as we'll soon see, that the book value was far less than what the actual company value was truly worth. And once again, going back to the whole having the evaluation done and knowing, what your company is worth. There are typically 5 different methodologies that you can use into evaluating a business. For example, you have the discounted future earnings, earnings capitalization, straight capitalization, book value, etc. You definitely want to be knowledgeable. At least you don't have to know exactly how those calculations are done, but you want to know approximately, how your business would be valued at each of those levels. At least have something to reference. So in this case, other than some basic term policy, they had no other life insurance in force. They had no sinking fund available, so if they needed extra capital within the business, that was non-existent at the time. With that key executive, they had no bonus arrangement. There was no golden handcuffs. There was no way of really giving any incentive for that employee to stay. They paid him a nice wage, and he did have some loyalty to the company, but he was definitely a sought-after asset that, for what he was able to do for that construction company, he could easily implement in any other business. So they knew that, and they wanted to prevent, any headhunters calling, enticing him with a package that he couldn't resist. And essentially, with the succession plan, they didn't have anything really in place, especially dealing with the sons taking over and also having a clear indicator of what the business was worth. So they had no insurance, had no other insurance, but they did have $1 million of term that they owned on themselves. So that is something, but as we'll soon see, it was a major shortfall. And also with their retirement, they both had a rough idea of how much they thought they would need to live off of when they finally called it quits, when they finally sold the business, got out. And based on what they thought they would get for the business after taxes, after everything, and what they thought they needed, there was a definite shortfall, a retirement gap in that amount. And a lot of that was the fact that they were saving, but they weren't maybe saving enough. But I think what we were able to identify was the actual investments. There were some investments that just were very subpar, that really hadn't been keeping up with what had been going in the market. We're not generating market-like return. Unfortunately, though, we're taking market-like risk. So, I mean, the risk was there, but the return was not, and we were able to help identify that. Oops. So here's just here was a rough look at the informal business valuation. Now, as I mentioned, this is something that if you have not had it done, you should. And if you haven't had it done and you're interested, that's something that we can actually provide for you. As I mentioned, we work with a third-party entity that actually will supply this with you. You just have to give them the information to be able to compute, and it's extremely helpful. It puts your business on paper, so you actually have a rough, not even a rough sketch, but more like an accurate sketch of what that might be. So once again, on their buy-sell agreement, they were using the $2.832 million as the valuation of the business. And as you can see, based on the other methodologies that you can use, they were off. There was definitely a shortfall. And the one thing you got to remember that, when the IRS is coming in and they're doing a business evaluation, which one do you think they're going to use? Do you think they're going to use the lower one when you go to sell? Or do you think they're going to use the $6.4 million so that they can generate some tax revenue for whenever you sell the business? I think we know the answer to that. It might not be the highest one, but even still, even if it was the year's purchase or the discounted future earnings, nonetheless, there's still a major difference there. So this was just an estimation of the business value here done between owner 1 and owner 2 at $3.25 million. And then just looking at a growth rate, thinking on the small side of things, think of a growth rate at 3.5%. We were expecting the value to be $4.5 million over that 10 years. And once again, just showing that they had such strong growth over that last 5 years that the policy that they took out, all the buy-sell agreement that they had in place, it was somewhat close to what they needed. They were still a little bit short even 5 years ago. Obviously, definitely short now. And then having a projected growth rate, over the next 10 years, if they didn't do anything today, then it just gets that much worse. Now we're that much of a shortfall to where if they wanted to, if there was a death where they had to buy out a partner, so I mean, basically what the whole Keyman Insurance does, helps you to buy out the partner. Your partner passes away, and now you've got a $2.5 million shortfall to buy them out because that's what the buy-sell agreement says. Now you've got to go to a lender and say, hey, I need to buy out my business. Will you give me a personal loan for $2.5 million? If you've got some good connections in the banking industry, that might happen. But in this case, they had no sinking fund, so they didn't have a lot of capital there. I mean, they had the retirement fund. So trying to get that money and get the loan, not saying it's impossible, but it could be ultra expensive. And by funding a life insurance policy that would be, pennies on the dollar compared to the interest that you pay on such a sizable loan, was pretty much a no-brainer. So here are just some of the areas that we address in the buy-sell agreement. And I think if you kind of look at these, there will be some similarities maybe in your own business that you haven't addressed. Their case, and not just in their case, but a common thing that we see is that we see a lot of buy-sell agreements address the death of a partner or, a key executive, a key employee, but not necessarily the disability of an owner. And, not only that, it's what defines disability, in the business. That is a huge thing that you have to have some type of, the language in the agreement. Because if you have a partner that's become disabled and maybe in their mind that they're not disabled, they can still work, they can still run the business, but really it's, it's dragging down, the business because they're just not what they once were. Is there a certain term, a certain length of time that person can be disabled before they can come back? And then also, too, what defines disability? So do they think that they are still able to run the business, but in fact they can't? The buy-sell agreement should be able to acknowledge that to protect not only the other business owner, but, the employees of the business. This is a family-owned business. There are employees. There are, families involved here. So, just making sure that the business is protected to have, that kind of language in there. So one of the other things that we suggested was, and this was the golden handcuffs for the key executive, but was offering a restricted endorsement bonus arrangement. We've got some nice flow charts there that kind of illustrate, what this does. This is definitely a little bit more on the advanced planning side of things, but typically, what we see, you'll see a lot of executive bonuses. Just some type of bonus that gives the executive, the key employee, some incentive for, doing well with the company. But unfortunately, oftentimes, just having an executive bonus, I mean, it's a nice attachment, but it's very weak as far as keeping the employee with that company. So having some type of golden handcuffs that has some type of vesting schedule to where, they're going to receive some bonus now, but they're also going to have like a 5-year vesting schedule to where they're going to get small chunks of that bonus over that 5-year period. And then also each year there's a new arrangement that goes into force. So if you've got a key executive, I mean, that's going to entice them to want to stay because now they, if they leave, they're going to forfeit, a pretty huge chunk of that bonus. And, we do this typically by using, life insurance. As the example shows there, John Hancock Life Insurance is just one of the 100 different life insurance companies that we work with when it comes to funding, this type of REBA, restricted endorsement bonus arrangement plans. There are some carriers that have their own kind of niche in this, so we definitely want to, address those. But I'll let you kind of look over the numbers there. But this was, this was just one example, and you can structure these in a variety of ways. Especially if you have different levels of the key employees. But this was a way to give the key employee, give him some now, and also give him some reward for staying with the company to continue the growth plan that they've seen, and also to give them incentive to keep increasing as they go forward. All right. So here was just a look at the retirement shortfall when it came to, or the gap, as we sometimes refer to it. So when we're doing our retirement planning, we'll look at Social Security benefits. We'll look at pensions if that's the case. Usually it doesn't exist here with small business owners. We look at, the qualified plans, the 401ks, the profit sharing, whatever retirement plans that you have in place. And then we use a variety of tools. We definitely want to try to hit this from all different angles. One of the tools that we'll use is a Monte Carlo analysis, which will run over 1,000 different illustrations of all the different markets that we've seen, from the heyday of the tech era, back in the late 90s, to incorporating the markets like we saw in 2008 and the early part of 2009. I usually don't like bringing that up because it gives me just those inner chills thinking about the market being down. But nonetheless, they definitely had some shortfalls that they didn't really address. They just were putting money away. They had assumed that everything was up to par, that they had enough. But when we actually, figured out, okay, how much they needed to live off of, how much they estimated to live off of, and keep in mind, just because you tell me that you need $10,000 a month to live off of in retirement, usually most people are off, by 25, sometimes 50%. So, if you think you have enough and then you run an illustration and realize you have a shortfall, then it's probably even worse than that. You're probably even further off because, you haven't accounted for all the miscellaneous spending that goes along. But it's even harder for business owners, especially ones that want to exit prematurely. So for our business owners that want to sell, say in their 50s or early 60s and don't have the Social Security retirement income coming in, that just creates more of a burden on what other assets they have to make up that difference. And, for me as a planner, one of my biggest fears is a client that retires early, because if all they have is their retirement plans and their outside investments, they don't have Social Security to, fill in the gap, it just puts added pressure on their retirement account. So we want to make sure we definitely are planning accordingly. So in regards to the sons taking over, as I mentioned before, each partner had a son that was currently working for the company and wanted to continue working with the company. And this is just one way where you can use life insurance to fund a one-way buy-sell arrangement. And this is where, the business owners are going to buy, the life insurance policies on the business owner. The company usually is going to pay these. And then, some of the tax goes towards the IRS, then the key employee then obviously pays the life insurance, and then the key employee is also going to benefit from the cash value on the life insurance. This is just one example. The REBA that we looked at earlier was just one life insurance strategy that can be used. And as you can see, life insurance can also be used as a business succession plan, especially with a buy-sell agreement. And these are the type of cases that we love to work with, because even on a flow chart it can look a little confusing, and I guess for some business owners it may be, but when you start just peeling off the layers and just breaking it down what this all really means, it's really exciting to see the business owner. It's exciting to see them get excited to see how they can successfully pass on the business to their sons or with the family, and keep it family owned. So just as a kind of a wrap up, with the construction company that we looked at, we definitely identified that there was a need for business planning. They were over needed. They definitely had some shortfalls that we were able to address, and they were thankful. Initially, they were, I won't say they fought the process, but they were a little bit overwhelmed, thinking that it would be much difficult than it was. But after it was all said and done, they were able to run their businesses more efficiently, because they didn't have the added worry of what's going to happen if I'm not here, or what's going to happen if something happens with my partner. So we're able to address some of those common concerns and needs of those business owners. So here's just look at some of the sample needs that some business owners need. One thing that we haven't really addressed yet was the estate tax side of things. The estate tax code has changed, it feels like, 17 times in the last 2 years. But if there is an estate tax issue, having it all set up properly, using to, I won't say avoid the estate tax, but is to keep more of the wealth with your family versus paying it out in the estate tax. So that's some of the areas that we like to address. We've seen cases where we've been able to keep several $100,000 up to several $1 million with the family, by using irrevocable life insurance trust, by using proper life insurance planning to address some of those issues. So looking at, business planning services, as I alluded to before, this is something that we love to do for business owners because being a business owner myself, I can relate. I get why you haven't addressed some of these issues. There's a lot going on. It's running the business, it's, managing employees, keeping your employee morale high, addressing HR issues. There's so many different things to do. When it comes to, addressing what exactly is a buy-sell review, what does that include? First and foremost is a way to open a case with a business owner. There are the informal business evaluation. This is something that if you haven't had this done yet, we encourage you to do so. One of the companies that we partnered up with is Principal, and that was the company that I alluded to, the third-party entity. They do this for free. They do this for free. Obviously, their hopes is that you're going to use them maybe for some of the life insurance products they have to offer, and we might, but it's definitely not set in stone. But that is a tremendous resource that we've been able to do, and just to have the informal business evaluation done has just really opened the eyes of business owners on so many different facets, from the life insurance coverage to the buy-sell agreement, reviewing their buy-sell arrangements, reviewing any funding, any shortfalls in their funding needs. And, with these reports, with this business planning services reports that you can get, you'll have a starting point for discussions with your tax and legal advisors. If they haven't done it yet, now you've got something that you can go to them and say, hey, okay, I had this informal business evaluation done. Here's what my business is worth. What do I need to do? And if you don't feel comfortable leading that discussion, that's something that we can also help out with as well. So just to look at kind of the process of how it works. The process, first and foremost, is collecting data, collecting information, making sure that we get all the information we need. If your tax preparer already has all this information and you just want to have us contact them, we can do that. But the key thing is just really getting started. But you need to collect the documents. Some of the things that we're going to need are any buy-sell agreements that you have in place. What is your current entity type? Are you a C Corp, S Corp, LLC, etc.? How many owners are in place? Do you have any key employees, any key executives that you want to keep or have entice them with some type of golden handcuffs package so that they don't leave to work for your top competitor? Need to look at your financials, having the most recent 3 years financials, trying to get as accurate as you can. And then once again, also looking at if you have any existing life insurance in place as well. So some of the solutions that we support, just running through down the list, are buy-sell strategies, business protection, executive bonus planning, split dollar plans, just another type of executive bonus arrangement that you can work depending on how your business is structured. Non-qualified defined benefit plans, compensation plans. This could be from your traditional 401k to simple IRAs, sub-IRAs, maybe a profit-sharing component. There's also ways, other types of non-diversified comp plans that you can implement, that will allow you to save more for the partners and the key executives. So there are, just basically so as you can imagine, just like every individual, every business owner is different. Every situation is different. So, to have the ability to address and have a custom solution for your business and most importantly for your goals is essential. Once again, financial planning, retirement planning, all that good stuff. So just wanted to wrap this up. I do have a few different online entities. As Aaron alluded to, Good Financial Sense is my financial planning blog. Life Insurance by Jeff is my insurance blog, and then you can see my business site and my book that will be released later on this year. But if you are interested in having the informal business valuation done, and as I mentioned, this is free. There is no hard sell afterwards. This is basically, we are offering you a chance to have a true understanding of what your business is worth, to help you plan on the other parts of with your business. If you go to this domain right here, lifeinsurancebyjeff.com /biz, B-I-Z. If you go there and drop in your email, your name and email, we will send you, first we'll just send you some free reports that you can take a look at just to see if, if it's something that is of interest to you. And then whether you want to call or email us and say, hey, you know what, yeah, I want to take you up on this offer. We'll give you the documentation you need, just some questionnaires that you'll need to fill out, and then we'll get that order to you, and then you'll take a look, and if it's provided some value for you, great. If there's something that we can help in that process as well, I mean, we're more than happy to help out. And Erin, I think that's actually all I have for today.
All right, thanks, Jeff. And it looks like there's not any questions today. It looks like you covered everything in full, and but we will have this webinar up on our website. If you are wanting to view this and get some more information or look through any of the stuff that Jeff has provided us today. Our next webinar is on February 21st at 1 p.m. and here is the details, and just be looking for an invitation in your email. And I would like to show my appreciation to Jeff today and thank you for participating in our Workplace Excellence webinar.